The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Inarticulate speech, inarticulate speech of the heart. Inarticulate speech, inarticulate speech of the heart. Inarticulate speech, inarticulate speech of the heart.
Hello, and welcome to It's Your Voice, the show that hosts enriching conversations in diversity. My name is Bahia Yaksan, and I'm honored to be able to hold conversations every week with people from various backgrounds and points of views and ethnicities or religions or nationalities or just different ideologies. I find it very enriching, very educational, very stimulating, and I'm really grateful for this platform. I also have a website called knowwhatyouwantcoaching.wordpress.com because I am an emotional wisdom training specialist, a coach, and a diversity educator. I was able to grow up in a mixed heritage family, the daughter of an immigrant, and we lived in a lot of different places, not just in the United States, but in other countries, which exposed me to incredible opportunities to connect with people from all kinds of backgrounds and sometimes not with the same language. And again, I hope the listeners and viewers enjoy these conversations as much as I do. Today, I have an amazing panel, and thanks to one of the guests, this conversation was inspired by a talk I had with Dr. Hamza El-Nakhal, who was a guest last year and brought a Muslim point of view of Abraham to my show. It's a really wonderful podcast you can listen to later. And during that, I asked him if he could tell me what it's like to be in a white dominant city as a Muslim citizen. And it led to him telling an amazing story of great allyship and friendship. And as the title says, the title is Friendship Across Divisions is healing and requires commitment, something to that effect. And these three gentlemen have lived that and are here to share their insights and what they bring to the community to help broaden it and make it safer for all of us. So on that note, I would like to introduce Dr. Hamza El-Nakhal. He also has a doctor's degree in microbiology. He's been he's a former president of the Davis Islamic Center. He's been very involved with the International House and on a hate crimes committee, working with the U.S. Attorney General and many other activities. Thank you so much for being here and for inspiring this panel. We also have Rabbi Greg Wolfe, who is becoming the Rabbi Emeritus, June 30th, of Bet Haverim, and please correct me because I like to learn to say things correctly if I don't. And apparently two wonderful new rabbis will be taking your place July 1st. And we also have Pastor Chris Erdman, who I've learned so much from in understanding the texts from the Bible that were always confusing to me before. And I'll just mention that we have different religions in my family and we're read different texts. And Chris, you make me understand the Bible in a way I've never been able to comprehend before. So thanks for that skillful talent. So, oh my gosh, thank you all so much. And I want to first start by saying, Dr. El-Nakhal mentioned he is not a religious leader as Pastor Mebar. He's just a very active, involved community member. However, could you tell the story of how this allyship began to, or one way it began to manifest after 9/11?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Baya, very much. And greeting to your guests, Rabbi Greg Wolfe and Reverend Dr. Chris Erdman. It's a real honor to be with them on the same show. And greeting to all your followers. Well, we really got to form this allyship way right after 9/11. Before that event, we were all kind of secluded and kind of cocooned, everyone in his own community. So I think this 9/11 brought us all together. Somehow we connected with people of faith from different community, and I remember quite vividly. I was president of the Islamic Center of Davis, and within maybe one day, and before the next Friday prayer, a reverend from the community church in Davis, his name is Jim Kitchens, he just contacted me. I say, look, there were a lot of ill feeling, of course, which was understandable. Then he said, look, I would like to bring my congregation and we'll surround your mosque so you can pray in peace on Friday. And that touched my heart so much.
Yeah, that's remarkable.
And it was just really remarkable, a very difficult time. So we did connect it from there. And then after that, an organization that was formed, the Celebration of Abraham, where Jews, Christian, and Muslim came together to just get all our communities together. And I think the message here is to reach out to each other. Sometimes we just, and especially after all this new technology, we all look on our telephones and our computers, and we don't have too much time to connect together again. So I hope by the end of this show, we'll have a message that we connect to each other. I think it make a big difference and create a lot of friendship. And I did have looked at some of the papers, and I don't know if that shows clearly or not. I'll try this people, Rabbi Greg Wolfe and Father John Paul and Reverend Eileen Lindsay from the church right across the street from the synagogue. And they all came to the Islamic Center and stood with us. It was a really good touch from them. Also, we used to be able to visit each other different. I think Greg will very much remember we gather in different homes once a month or so. We go and gather. We eat together. So we met in Rabbi and in my house and other reverends. Once a month we go and we share ideas. And here are also in the Davis Enterprise a picture of all of us that has many people. It has Osman Al-Saud, Khalid Saeed, John Pamperin, Gil Medovoy, Hannah Pepperstein, Dan Looney, Azhar Ali, Greg Wolfe, John Paul, so many people, Priscilla High. We had a wonderful time. We used to do that very frequently, and it got us really to be friends. We were reaching out to each other, and it was really, and from then, before 9/11, I never had any communication or contact with anybody of different faith, whether the Christians or the Jews. Never had any relation.
Wow.
And,
Interesting.
and from there, I have a lot of, and the truth is, we're all in the same path. And we ought to know each other better. Once I get to know all these people from different faith, my heart open to all of them. I don't have any objection. And I think when we went through this divided thing on different religion, now I think in Davis we have a wonderful, I don't know how it is in other communities, but in Davis at least we have very close relationship between Muslim, Christian, and Jews. And many difficult time when the Islamic Center faced trouble, the Jews and Christian came forward. So the same thing when we happen to the Jews and the Christian, the Muslims stand up with both of them. So it's really important that we reach out, and I'm not citing that only for religion. I hope we can do that even along the political divide, along the ethnic divide, along the color divide, the disability divide. There is so many things. So I hope that we can learn that if we notice what happened during the pandemic, because there were a lot of people against taking vaccine or using the masks, and they felt their freedom was really imposed on, and a lot of so there were. And I hope we can reach out to each other. I think we're in to have a more compassionate world. People who live and love each other rather than just being in opposition. And I don't want to take too much time because I know time is short. So please stop me if you can.
Well, thank you so much for that opening for us. And when you said the contact after 9/11, after, of course, a horrible disaster, opened the door for communication locally between three different practices of three different major religions. It reminded me of how when China was when Tibet was invaded by China, one of the results was Buddhism spread all around the world, and a whole huge understanding came. And likewise, after the pandemic, hopefully so much more clarity and belief in all the inequities has arisen. And here we are today, thanks to your hope and your wish to continue on this path of opening hearts and minds and staying connected. And Rabbi Greg Wolfe, I'm so glad that you were back. I know you had some technical issues, so let's go with you just in case we lose you again, because we want to make sure you hear your voice. And what do you? I know you didn't hear everything Hamza said, but what would you like to bring to the conversation about what it's like to be like a solid ally, and what it's like when you need allies?
Yeah, well, I think this idea of building bridges has been, I guess, kind of the backbone of the work that we've been doing over the last 20 years now, which is really amazing. And we're very happy to bring Chris into the process when he arrived into town. But my relationship with Hamza goes back, as he said, to those early days. And Randy Rose was this guy that was traveling up and down the valley, helping to start these celebrations, bringing the different faiths together. And we're still going strong today. One of my favorite moments was an opportunity we had when we did a faith solidarity walk, and we started at the synagogue, and then we walked to the mosque, and then we walked to the church, and we must have had a couple hundred people coming together and just sharing and being together. And as Hamza said, the most important thing is, I think that for a long time our communities didn't know each other, and in many ways it took this tragedy of 9/11 to bring us together, to get to know each other, to open our hearts to each other, and to be able to be there. Over the years, there have been many opportunities where we have joined forces and supported each other. And I think that's really made a lot of difference for us.
Thank you so much. And yeah, thanks for that specific example of activity together.
And we've had many others too, but that one really stands out for me as a very powerful moment.
Thank you, Greg. So, Pastor Chris.
Yes. My turn.
Yes.
Well, so, it's such a pleasure to be with my brothers here in this format. We haven't been together for quite a while, since the pandemic, and I can remember having a meal at my home with the two of them and their partners, with Julie and Greg and Neriman and Hamza. And my challenge is to try to make sure I got all the dietary things right so that I could be a proper host to my friends. And for me, I suppose, the world is so fractured, and the suspicions are so high, and the hostilities and the greed and the bloodshed, that we need sources for the renewal of our humanity. And I think I look to religion. Religion's been a terrible scourge on the planet in so many ways, and yet there's no getting away from it. And I think we have got to leverage the resources of the religious impulse in the heart of humanity for the good of humanity. So as a Christian, I'm Trinitarian, which means we believe that the God is multiple. That doesn't mean there are multiple gods. It means that God exists in community. So when Christians speak of Father, Son, Holy Spirit, or some fashion of the Godhead, the beauty for me is that that's an illustration, a metaphor, a symbol of the way in which humanity is to live in community. Multiple, yet one. And so for me to live into that is to do the kinds of things that we're doing today to build bridges. So I work from three things: religion matters, soul matters, and justice matters. And so for me, that point about religion, that if we can leverage the religious impulse of people to work to bring down the walls of hostility between us, to raise our consciousness, to become better human beings, that's going to lead the way, where politics is not going to lead us. I think it's the soul and the spirituality and our religious traditions that could lead us into a more robust human flourishing and the flourishing of our planet. And so my relationship with these two marvelous men and their partners has been critical to fostering that here in Davis, and my own experience of that kind of unity.
And I would add to those wonderful words that that Chris brought is that the magic really is in having the receptivity and partners to work with. You could imagine being in a community where you can have all these wonderful ideas and want to do these beautiful social justice activities, but it's kind of like being in an echo chamber if it doesn't come back to you. And I think that what we are so fortunate to have, and really the treasure of our greater Davis community, is a very energized clergy and active community of people who really care deeply about these issues, right? That there is this kind of synergy that happens both, I think, among the clergy and leadership from the different communities, but also among our people. And that's what sort of plants the seeds to open up the possibilities, as Pastor Chris talked about, of really, speaking to people's hearts, to their souls, but also to engage their hands in doing the work of bringing about a repaired world, which, is something that stands at a very central place in our Jewish community, which I think we share, across these lines with all people of faith, and even those who have no faith. This idea that we can build a world that is better than it is today. And it's aspirational, right? That we may not be there yet, but we always believe that we're moving in the right direction. And it only happens when we can work, join our hands and work together.
Can I would like to add something in there. I don't really think there's nothing wrong with religion itself, but some religion leader, we're fortunate in Davis, we have two great leaders, Rabbi Greg Wolfe and Dr. Chris Erdman. Those are great leaders. I've seen religion leaders who are really, they tend to break people together. And I've seen great leaders like the Rabbi and the Reverend there. They try to bring people together. So humans are not only divided by religion, but divided by color, divided by ethnic background, divided by gender, divided by so many different things. They find things. Look, Democrats and Republicans. We find a way to disagree with everybody on big things and little things. So I think reaching out, and I need people like the Rabbi and Reverend there to open hearts and reach out to people. If we have more people like them, I don't think we would be where we are right now. But we should, and hopefully one day we can attract more people or more faith leader or political leader or whatever to just bring people together. I think this is the most important. I don't know why people are so much divided. Maybe there is limited resources in some location. Maybe there is some greed in some other location or something like that. So the burden falls on the shoulders of the faith leader right now. That's how I feel it. So I think religion, nothing wrong. All the religion really call for all good things. That's the truth. Whether Muslim, Judaism, Christianity, or other religion, they don't call to hate and killing and lying and all that. But somehow, I don't know what happened. So somewhere, I hope that the leaders, because there's so many followers for them. So I really admire the role they do, and I appreciate them, and I feel honored to be sitting with them.
We're honored to be sitting with you. I was just going to mention too that it so happens that today is the Jewish holiday Purim, which is a holiday that celebrates the great courage of Queen Esther to stand up against evil, right? And one of the reasons that the Jews were singled out was for being different. And I think this goes to what Hamza was saying, that sometimes we focus on the differences between us, and then that can create enmity and distrust. But there is so much more that unites us, and so much more that we share in common. And sometimes it's helpful to celebrate the differences, but also to celebrate the things that we really do have in common, that our faith traditions, bring us together around those central ideas.
And I want to follow up on that, because that's a beautiful thing to talk about Esther. And it was the xenophobia that drove that, the fear of the other, the fear of the difference. And what I have learned from Hamza and Greg and their communities is this, what I would call, I want to be with them enough that I want to fall in love with their religion. I want to be curious about it. So when I go to an Eid festival dinner that the Islamic community puts on, I am so astonished and drawn that I almost want to become Muslim, right? And then I go to the synagogue and I'm there for a gathering with them, whether it's been an interfaith tradition or some other event at the synagogue. I want to become Jewish. Or I go to a bar mitzvah, and yet at the same time, I don't want to lose myself. Now, this is the beauty. How can we so honor the other and be curious about the other and love that difference while holding on to our own self? This is part of the beauty of what it means to be human. So I think we're not talking about watering down any of our traditions. We're actually talking about enjoying them deeply and recognizing in them some hint of the divine and some hint of what it means to be a better human being.
I like that. I like that. It's beautiful the way you put it. We can still be ourselves. We don't have to change. You don't have to be like that. You have to be yourself, but just be compassionate. You have to go on reach out to them. And I think it's beautiful to be different, but not to be enemies. If we can be different, and it's beautiful to have a beautiful world with all different colors and all different beliefs, but we don't hate each other because of our beliefs. And that's really a major things. Of course, after 9/11, there were just a lot of hate and a lot of distrust and things like that. And just a faith leader led the whole community to get out of that. And that is great. And I hope we'll continue to carry this role. I don't know if you can solve the issues between Republicans and Democrats, or solve a between white and black. And there is so many divides that breaks us apart. And I hope when the homeless, we don't take care of our homeless. We shouldn't do that. We should really make an effort we shouldn't have homeless. Why should we? There's a lot of resources around it. People overeat, people throw things away. So there are a lot of things that need to be really addressed. And I know that the burden on the leadership of the faith community is so huge.
Thank you, Hamza. It's wow. I love what each one of you said, and I didn't want to interrupt the dialogue, but I want to respond to a couple of things. One is to recognize how much the churches and the synagogue, and no doubt, Hamza, members of the mosque have here locally addressed issues of homelessness and work together to find at least temporary housing for people in the winter. And it's become even a larger project. So I just want to acknowledge that and say thank you for that. And also, Chris, when you were talking about like loving each other's religion and to the point where like, wow, I could be Jewish, I could be Muslim, I could be Christian. And the part of holding on to the self, what came to my mind of what would I want to hold on to is just the culture of the family traditions, right? The culture, like, oh, I don't want to lose the culture that my parents and relatives painstakingly wanted me to know about, so that we can have the esteem and carry on the name with with representing ourselves ethically and being the good people we were raised to be. But I think that's why I'm just always been fascinated by religions. It's like, oh, it's the same lessons. It's like, oh, it is just like what Dr. Hamza just said. Like, it's about love and connection, and like it is such a beautiful thing that to see it truly manifesting and I think I totally agree. And Hamza, you are one of the leaders who help people like walk the values, like not just espouse them, but like literally walking, cooking, feeding, housing. And there's just so many ways all of you are taking care of community, which makes you real, just manifesting the lessons of love and what I believe are the dictates of the religions. And as you said, other religions, and as one of you also recognized, secular people who have the drive and the passion to do good and be good and don't necessarily identify with a religious institution, but also deeply appreciate and admire what leaders like you all are doing and often join in. and because they're accepted by all of you too. The sort of the lack of like dogmatic criteria really opens the doors even wider.
Well, I tell you, we as a country or a nation, if united, nothing can conquer us. If we are divided, and that's what everybody else is trying, we're like a shining light on a hill. That's true. That's absolutely. Everybody in the world look at us and they dream to be in our place, and we could lose that status if we're divided. If we're divided, whether by religion, by politics, by color, if we start fighting each other, we're in trouble.
And don't you think it's we're manipulated? Like we're told lies. like division is based on manipulating.
Absolutely, yeah. I think so. I think somebody get the benefit. They try to divide us by any means necessary, and a lot of forces in the world really look to divide us.
Yeah, I was going to just say that sometimes it's not necessarily some sort of evil plot necessarily, or manipulation. Sometimes it's the fact, if you look at our own community, it's just we don't, if you don't know each other, if you don't have an opportunity to actually get to meet individuals and to learn about their faith and their traditions and actually see that you share so much in common, it's maybe more of a kind of an ignorance about each other. And as Chris said, to see the richness and the joy and say and to fall in love with these other things. And one of the things the celebration of Abraham has really attempted to do was to get people to know each other. So we always sat at tables where you could sit around and talk to each other. We always shared a piece, some bread, and broke bread together, and we would have conversations with each other. So people couldn't say, oh, well, I don't know, I've never met a Jewish person, or I've never met a Muslim before, or I didn't know even a different Christian, right? Coming together. And I think that's really the main problem that we have, is that we sometimes live in our little bubbles, and that gets, even more what's the word, extreme, when you take things online and people kind of are just in these echo chambers and they only hear people who agree with them, and they don't really get a chance to meet people outside their communities. And I think that's really one of the great things that we can try to achieve, in our own. If we can only achieve that in our own little community of Davis, I think we can become a model for what can be possible elsewhere. And sometimes it's just a matter, of knocking on the door and inviting people in, or creating those opportunities where people who are curious, or maybe who are even a little hesitant, somebody would invite them in, and they'll come and say, "Oh, that was actually really interesting. I didn't even know that," right? And I think that it makes it seem more manageable, as opposed to trying to think about fighting some evil foe out there. It's really within our power right here to make those changes on a very local, personal level.
Thank you. Thank you for the excellent point. It also reminds me of when I know at one point the rabbi's family hosted a exchange student. You may have hosted many exchange students.
No, just that one. That broke the mold. After that, it was like.
Well, it was just even because of the conditioning and the categories that are so ingrained in the consciousness, kind of in general, in a sweeping generalization, in the society, even in the community, people hearing the rabbi is hosting a student from Palestine, that meant a lot. Just the concept, people who didn't even know you, people who hadn't even met the student, who I'm lucky enough to have known.
Did you get to meet Kais?
Yes, he's close to my son.
Nice.
In my son's age, they I don't know if they overlapped or in the same class, but anyway, even that means so much, right? And it was not just symbolically, but like really.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to just say a word about that, because that was one of those things that I was approached by somebody. I remember it was spring break, so it was right around this time. And somebody said, "Oh, we have this student coming, and he's from Israel. Maybe thinking, as the rabbi, I would know somebody who might want to host them." So I started reading through his application, and he was an Arab Muslim Israeli from Palestinian, descent. And I said to my wife, I said, this is an amazing kid. We have to take him in. But all of a sudden, then we thought, well, it's one thing for him to come and live with a Jewish family. It's another thing to come and live, with a rabbi's family. So actually we were willing, and we weren't sure what his family would think. And I told the organizer, I said, well, you better ask his family, like, is this going to be okay with them? And it was great because the mom said, well, if the rabbi wants you, then, it should be fine. And then he said he went and looked at my Facebook page because he'd met other rabbis in Israel, but mostly they were like ultra Orthodox. And he's like, looked at my Facebook page and said, I've never seen a rabbi like that before. And we had, and I know he spoke, I think, at Davis Community Church, and he spoke at other places around town, and that was kind of part of his mission. But, he was such an open-hearted, wonderful, again, model and exemplar of how we can build these bridges. And it's great. We've stayed in touch, and he's studying to be a doctor, and he's in Italy right now, up in northern Italy.
Fantastic.
So isn't that nice brotherhood? It's really nice. I mean, what could be better than that? I wish the whole world would do the same thing.
Yeah, and we were very excited to be able to introduce him to, that we actually had Muslim friends that we could introduce him to. And Ann and Kamal would take him to the Salam Center, and he had other opportunities, and I think to meet other kids. He went to some of the other mosques and things like that, and also to churches, and came to the synagogue, and it was just interesting to see again how similar, we were, and even the language is similar.
That's beautiful, and thank you. It's a good time to segue. You're saying language because we just have a couple minutes left, and this went by so quickly. I want you to know I'd love to invite all three of you back, and I will. But I want to make sure I give you each opportunity to say closing words. And I know you can all do beautiful prayers. So I want to just go around and give you the opportunity because we're really at our wrap-up time. So if you want to say your closing thought and a closing prayer, let's start with you, Chris, because we haven't heard from you for a couple of minutes. Do you mind first?
And how much time? 30 seconds? 1 minute?
Wait. I'd say I think we have 3 minutes, so okay, 1 minute.
So my midday prayer gathering yesterday, which is all online, I read from three texts for meditation. One from the book of Psalms, the Jewish Psalter. I read from the New Testament, a little section from Matthew's Gospel, and one from the Quran. And the Quran says in this section, those who save a human life will be as if they saved all of humankind. And my Christian people were so in love with that text. My point is, we've got to go back to the sources of our spirituality. Human beings are deeply, inherently spiritual, and that's what's going to give us the elevated consciousness to cross over the divides we easily erect. So my prayer and my blessing is that we may find in our souls the deep wisdom of the divine to bring us together, to hold us together, and to heal this world.
Amen.
Thank you. I'm not sure who wants to go next.
Well, I can go in because one of the interesting things is that teaching about the one who saves a life, saves the whole world actually comes from the Talmud as well. It is a central teaching in our tradition. So again, there's this wonderful blending of these various teachings of our responsibility to bring, peace and healing. And one of the names that we have for God is, Makora Shalom, the source of peace. And we end our prayer services often with this blessing, with this hope that says, Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Which means, oh God, source of peace, who makes peace in the heavens, send peace down here to earth, to all human beings. And in some ways, we try to emulate God and to be that source of peace, to be God's hands for peace, to reach out to one another, to open our hearts and understanding and care and compassion, so that the peace of the high heavens are really down here. And really, we believe that our goal is to create heaven right here on earth, and that it is in fact possible to do. So may that be, in fact, our challenge, and may we all be successful in that.
Well, I'll close with the verse from Quran that sums all what we've been talking about. This is verse 13 in chapter 29. It says, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. The translation says, mankind, we created you from single pair of a male and a female, and made you into nations and tribes, that you may know each other, not that you may despise each other. Verily, the most honored of you in the sight of Allah is he who is the most righteous of you. And Allah has full knowledge and is well acquainted with all things.
Thank you so much. Shukran Dara. Thank you, everyone. I look forward to our next conversation. And I also want to thank our wonderful sound engineer, Roxy, and our producer, Dean, and the viewers and listeners. Please share this beautiful message with anyone and everyone. And tune in next week at www.w4cy.com or Talk4TV, Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And may we all have enriching conversations in diversity this week.
Amen.
Inarticulate speech of the heart.